The universe operates on a single ruthless law, the law of exchange. Society has fed you the delusion that you can have it all. You want the empire, the respect, and the absolute freedom, but you also want to keep your comfortable weekends, your lazy habits, and your toxic friends. This is the mindset of a beggar. The cold architect knows that every ounce of power must be purchased with an ounce of blood. You cannot become a king without brutally murdering the peasant inside of you. True transformation is not an addition, it is a violent subtraction. The universe does not accept I owe us. If you want to ascend to the zenith, you must walk up to the counter and pay the absolute price. You are trying to squeeze a new powerful life into your old weak skin. It is biologically impossible. A snake that refuses to shed its dead skin will eventually suffocate and die inside it. You are suffocating yourself. You hold on to relationships that expired 5 years ago because of loyalty. You hold on to comfortable routines because they feel safe. To grow into the man you are destined to become, you must shed the old identity completely. It requires leaving parts of yourself behind to rot in the sun. The process is highly uncomfortable, and it leaves you feeling raw and exposed. But peeling away the dead layers is the only way to expand your empire. There is a toll gate on the road to greatness. The average man walks up to the gate, checks his pockets, realizes he does not want to pay, and turns back to the comfortable village. The toll is not paid in money. The toll is paid in isolation, in early mornings, in misunderstood obsessions, and in the loss of cheap popularity. You have to drop the coin of your comfort into the heavy iron box every single day. The cold mind does not complain about the price. He understands that the high cost is a filtration system designed to keep the weak and the uncommitted out of his territory. Pay the toll and walk through the gate. You cannot cross a massive abyss in 2 small steps. The hopeful man tries to keep 1 foot in his comfortable past while blindly reaching for a powerful future. He is terrified of losing his balance. As a result, he is slowly torn apart, stuck in the middle, achieving absolutely nothing. Execution requires a total commitment of mass. You must gather all your energy, burn the bridge of retreat behind you, and launch your entire being across the void. The gap between who you are and who you want to be requires a leap of absolute faith in your own ruthless competence. Stop hovering on the edge. Commit to the jump or step away from the cliff entirely. Look closely at the people surrounding you. Most of them are not pushing you forward. They are pulling you down into their comfortable mediocrity. They are dead branches attached to your tree. They consume your time, your emotional energy, and your focus, providing absolutely zero value in return. The nice guy feels guilty for outgrowing his friends. He lets the rot spread to his own trunk. The architect operates like a ruthless gardener. He identifies the dead branches, picks up the axe, and severs them completely. Do not apologize for leaving weak people behind. If they wanted to come to the summit, they would have started climbing. Cut them off and save your empire. You say you want to be successful, yet your phone is filled with mindless apps. Your calendar is cluttered with useless social events, and your mind is flooded with cheap entertainment. You are a king carrying a bag of garbage. It is time for an execution. You must build a mental guillotine, bring every distraction, every toxic habit, and every time-wasting relationship to the block. Drop the heavy steel blade. No hesitation, no mercy. Absolute focus requires the the ruthless elimination of everything that does not serve the mission. The cold mind does not negotiate with distractions, he executes them in the town square. Sacrifice is messy. It is not a clean, poetic transition. When you start building the empire, you will lose sleep, you will lose money, you will lose your old identity. You're going to spill blood on the floor. The average man panics at the sight of the spill. He desperately tries to clean it up and return things to normal. The Stoic architect looks at the spilled liquid and understands it is the undeniable cost of doing real business. You cannot forge a heavy iron sword without scattering sparks and ash. Accept the collateral damage. Let the old life spill out and walk right through it. Before you can be filled with absolute power, you must first be completely emptied. Right now, your vessel is full of other people's opinions, societal expectations, and cheap fears. There is simply no room left for greatness. You must take your vessel and turn it upside down. Pour out the need to be liked. Pour out the fear of judgment. Pour out the emotional attachment to the past. The process of becoming cold is the process of creating a massive, terrifying vacuum within yourself. Once you are completely empty and completely silent, you finally have the space to forge a mind of solid iron. Power isolates. That is an absolute mechanical truth. The higher you climb the mountain, the thinner the air becomes, and the fewer people there are who can breathe it. The weak man fears this isolation. He sabotages his own success so he can stay at the bottom, surrounded by the warm, noisy crowd of peasants. The architect embraces the silence of the summit. He accepts that leadership is fundamentally a solitary experience. You are the Black King on the board. You make the heavy decisions alone. You carry the ultimate weight alone, and you execute alone. If you cannot handle the silence, give up the crown. When you ascend, you will leave empty spaces in the lives of the people who used to feed on your energy. They will stare at the empty pedestal where you used to stand, and they will be furious. They will accuse you of arrogance. They will say, "Success has ruined you." Understand that their anger has absolutely nothing to do with you. They are simply grieving the loss of a free resource. They are angry because the machine that used to solve their problems has been unplugged. Do not step back down off your pedestal to make them feel better. Stay elevated. Let them learn how to climb. When you engineer a mind of solid iron, your entire frequency changes. You no longer resonate with trivial gossip, cheap drama, or complaints about how unfair the world is. You become a heavy steel tuning fork, vibrating at the frequency of absolute execution. Average people will not be able to understand your vibration. They will find your intensity uncomfortable. They will call you cold, unfeeling, and robotic. This means the transformation is working. You are no longer broadcasting on the civilian frequency. You are transmitting on the encrypted channel of the elite. Let them complain about the noise while you orchestrate the empire. The biological impulse of the moth is to chase the light, blindly flying into the flame until it is destroyed by its own desire for warmth. The old version of you was a moth, chasing validation, chasing warmth, chasing the comfortable light of social acceptance. The cold mind freezes that impulse completely. You must let the emotional, light-seeking creature inside you die in the ice. You no longer fly blindly towards what feels good. You move with heavy, calculated precision towards what is objectively necessary. You trade the fatal warmth of the fire for the invincible, immortal clarity of the freezing cold. Inside every man is a peasant who begs for comfort, constant validation, and a life entirely devoid of friction. This peasant is terrified of the freezing cold of execution. He wants to clock out at exactly 5 o'clock, consume cheap entertainment, and complain endlessly about the unfair economy. If you truly want to build an empire, you cannot negotiate with this pathetic creature. You must put him against the wall and execute him. You cannot carry the heavy habits of poverty into the palace of absolute power. Strip away his cheap desires, starve him of his lazy weekends. When you finally brutally murder the peasant mindset, the cold architect permanently takes the throne. The crown you are chasing is not made of shining gold or soft velvet. It is made of raw, incredibly heavy iron. The masses look at the king and envy his position, but they do not see the crushing weight of the metal on his skull. Power is a massive burden. It requires the sacrifice of your irresponsibility. You can no longer blame others when things go wrong. The buck stops with you. Every failure is your fault. The weak neck of the peasant will snap under this weight. To wear the iron crown, you must build a spine of solid steel. Welcome the heavy burden, because weight is the only true measure of a man's significance. You are currently tangled in a massive knot of obligations, social expectations, and emotional debts that you never actually agreed to pay. The average man spends his entire life trying to patiently untangle this knot, wasting decades of vital energy to please people who do not matter. The cold mind does not untangle. The cold mind picks up the sword and severs the knot with one brutal strike. Stop trying to explain yourself. Stop trying to make your departure comfortable for the parasites. Cut the ties cleanly. The sudden snap will shock them, but the absolute freedom you gain is worth the momentary chaos of the blade. Retreat is a disease. As long as you leave a bridge standing behind you, your brain will always calculate the route back to safety when the war gets too intense. To unlock the absolute highest level of human performance, you must destroy the possibility of turning back. Strike the match. Burn the bridge to the ground. When your old job, your old town, and your old identity are reduced to ashes, you have no choice but to march forward into the unknown. Desperation is the ultimate catalyst for greatness. A man who cannot retreat is a man who will conquer the world simply because he has to. Every time you willingly sacrifice a comfort, you add another heavy plate to your mental armor. The man who takes the freezing shower, skips the dopamine meal, and works in total isolation is not punishing himself. He is a blacksmith in the forge. He is hammering the soft, vulnerable parts of his psyche into impenetrable steel. When the inevitable tragedies of life finally arrive, the soft men will be instantly pierced by the arrows of chaos, but the arrows will shatter against your chest. Your emotional detachment is not a weakness. It is a meticulously crafted shield. Let them call you cold. Stay in the forge. A ship cannot sail towards the horizon if it refuses to pull up its heavy anchor. You have anchors dragging along the ocean floor of your life. It is the nostalgic memory of who you used to be. It is the fear of outgrowing your family's expectations. These psychological anchors are massive, rusted iron weights designed to keep you permanently stationed in the harbor of mediocrity. You must grab the heavy chain and break it. Let the rusted anchor sink into the abyss forever. The ship of the architect is designed for the violent, open ocean. Cut the dead weight and let the freezing winds push you forward. To achieve absolute mastery, your fragile ego must be repeatedly sacrificed on the altar of truth. The ego hates to be wrong. It protects your current identity at all costs, aggressively defending your flaws and blinding you to your own incompetence. You must become the murderer of your own pride. When you fail, do not make excuses. Look at the bloody mess, admit your catastrophic incompetence, and extract the cold data. The architect bleeds his ego dry so that his intellect can operate without emotional interference. Only a man who is completely unafraid of looking foolish can endure the brutal repetition required to become a master. When you eliminate the noise, the toxic people, and the cheap dopamine, you will be left with a terrifying, massive silence. The void will initially feel incredibly heavy. Your addicted brain will panic, screaming for you to turn the music back on, to check your phone, to fill the empty space with anything at all. Do not move. Sit in the center of the silent void and let it crush you. This emptiness is the exact location where your true power is born. When you finally learn to tolerate the absolute silence without seeking an escape, you become untouchable. The void is not empty. It is a canvas of pure potential. Every extraordinary achievement in human history required an extraordinary tax to be paid. You cannot cheat the cosmic accountant. If you want the physical strength of a gladiator, you must pay the tax of agonizing muscle failure. If you want the financial freedom of a king, you must pay the tax of agonizing, decade-long obsession. The weak man looks at the price tag and tries to negotiate a discount. The cold architect slams the exact payment on the counter without blinking. He knows that whatever he sacrifices today will be returned to him tenfold in the currency of absolute power. Pay the tax in full right now. Treat your life with the cold, precise mechanics of a trauma surgeon. When a surgeon sees a dying patient, he does not panic. He does not cry. He does not hope for a miracle. He picks up the scalpel, cuts through the flesh, and removes the tumor with absolute, emotionless precision. You must apply this exact ruthlessness to your own existence. Identify the habits that are killing your future. Pick up the surgical steel and cut them out of your life. It will bleed, it will hurt, but the amputation of your weakness is the only way the rest of the organism can survive and conquer the board. When you have sacrificed the trivial things, your focus becomes incredibly dense. You are no longer scattered across 100 meaningless distractions. All your kinetic energy is consolidated into a singular, devastating point of execution. In physics, extreme density creates extreme gravity. As you become a heavier, more disciplined, more cold-blooded architect, you will begin to pull opportunities, resources, and high-level allies into your orbit. You do not need to chase success like a desperate peasant. You simply stand still, increase your mass through relentless daily execution, and let your undeniable gravity do the work. Become the black hole in the center of your universe. Welcome to Zenith Construct. We do not negotiate with our biological weaknesses, and we absolutely do not expect the indifferent universe to hand us the crown for free. We pay the toll in blood, sweat, and silence. If you are finally ready to execute the lazy peasant inside you, pay the absolute, undiscounted price of greatness, and forge a mind of solid, impenetrable iron. Subscribe now. Join the heavy alliance of the unshakable. Embrace the brutal law of sacrifice. Become completely unbreakable. The fire of the forge is waiting for your weakness. Step into the dark and let the era of the cold architect officially begin.